This is Legacy Battle. Make sure you hit subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, any other platform you're listening on. I'm Michael Adams, creator of Legacy Battle. My panelists tonight from the Gridiron Battle Zone, Brian King, Penn State Athletics, Kevin Adams, Ball State Athletics, Paul Havicott. Our special guest tonight, we're joined by an actor, producer, writer. He's worked on projects such as Friday the 13th, Part 3, the Memoriam doc, The Spirit of Haddonfield, and Never Hike Alone, the Ghost Cut. So we got Sean Richards here with us tonight. We've got a great topic for him too. Sean, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Awesome. So check this title out. This is a little bit out of our well here, but tonight's debate is going to be the greatest horror film with sports themes. And each film tonight has, let's say, a jock who is crucial to these films and the outcomes in the end. As always, afterwards, we're going to have a Q&A for Sean, our special guest. We'll have that at the end, as always. We're going to start out tonight with Christine.
Okay, we're looking at a 69% on Rotten Tomatoes here. It's released in December of '83, had a budget of $10 million, did $21 million in the box office. The premise of the movie, and I guess the link to sports, would be the football team, which strangely looks like the Browns. I think the movie was taking place and supposed to be in like Rockledge, California, 1978. But we have unpopular nerd Artie Cunningham, played by Keith Gordon. Buys a 1958 Plymouth Fury. You see sitting in like some kind of like garden or field. And we know at the beginning of the film, it's a creepy car, kills a plant worker, seems to be haunted. Artie goes and names the car Christine. He kind of develops an unhealthy obsession with the car, changes his personality to the cool guy, maybe to fit the persona of the car. His jock friend and sort of our sports link, Dennis Gilder, played by John Stockwell, he's a little bit alarmed with what's going on with his friend. And Buddy Repperton, who's the bully in the film, played by William Ostrander, he defaces Christine. The car restores itself, ends up killing off Buddy and his friend. So Dennis, and who becomes kind of Arnie's girlfriend, Lee Cabot, played by Alexandra Paul, they go on a sort of a mission to destroy Christine. There wasn't really any stars with this movie. Scott Baio tried out for Arnie. Kevin Bacon ended up choosing Footloose. Brooke Shields was going to play, the Lee character, but the filmmakers wanted to go with sort of no names, unknowns. They thought it would be better for the film and a lot cheaper, obviously. So the star of the film is really a 58 Plymouth Fury. Stephen King once said, "I chose that car because it was a forgotten car." And, it is kind of, you don't really think of that. It went on from Chrysler, from Plymouth Chrysler Corporation for a while. It was like a full-size, mid-size. Nobody really thinks about this car at all. But so the couple interesting things here, the film was shot in the same neighborhood that John Carpenter used in the movie Halloween. The big football scene in this, you got Dennis going to make a catch on the ball. He looks over, he sees Christine parked there with Arnie kissing his girl, gets in a major collision with another player, has a real severe injury. None of these cars were like stunt driven. There was no remote control used. They started the film like 24 cars, ended up with 3. And another funny thing was they didn't even use the motor from the car for the sounds. They used like the motor from a 1970 Mustang. So that was kind of acting, for lack of a better term too. So that's basically the movie Christine. I know Sean's a big car guy, so I'm hoping he kind of notices that I picked a car movie for him.
And we got an email from Alexandra Paul about this film. I'm just going to add in a little here what she said. She said, the set was fun and light, but the hours were absolutely horrible. They were shooting at 4 a.m., and it was a really hard time for her to be chipper. And then the next week they go back to shooting days, so it just really messed with their sleep schedule. So just a little inside information there from Alexandra Paul. So, Sean, let me come to you. This was definitely a different concept and scary based off of horror films from that time period in the 70s. Your thoughts on the acting in it, but also the villain isn't a person, it's a car.
Yeah. Actually, I love this movie. I think it's a great movie. John Carpenter's my favorite director. And, with all but maybe a couple that I wasn't a huge fan of, I pretty much love everything he does. It's just great. He was very versatile. He does do horror, and he did make his name with horror with Halloween in '78. But he's the reason I like him so much is whatever he takes on, he seems to really excel at it. He did They Live with Roddy Piper, and I was lucky enough to meet Roddy Piper back in 2006. But yeah, I think they made that around 86. And the Invisible Man movie with Chevy Chase, Escape from New York, Starman with Jeff Bridges, like very different kind of movies, but they all execute very well. So yeah, regarding Christine, I probably watch it at least once a year. It's a classic. It's pretty timeless to me. The music in the film is really great. Acting, I think, is right on point. Actually, I read the book by Stephen King that this movie's based on. This goes back to the last time I saw Paul before this past weekend. I was about 18 years old. I read that book on a family vacation. And, it's funny because a lot of people say, oh, the book, so much better than the movie. Well, no offense, Stephen King, I got two exceptions. I liked that Christine, the film, better than the book, because I think it synopsizes the best parts of the book and really it clips along at a great pace. And then Jaws too. I like Spielberg's movie better than Benchley's book. So again, just a lot better pace. And I think if those books were made exactly, or the movies was made exactly like those books, then there'd be some drag big time, like a lot of detail in those. So yeah, and actually my stepdad's cousin is good friends with William Ostrander. He was buddy. He was quite the bad guy, real asshole. He was great in that movie at being the big prick. And Stu Charno, actually, I met Stu, and back in 2005, my girlfriend at the time and I went to Stu's house, hung out a little bit. He was an interesting guy. He's one of Buddy's sidekicks that tore apart Christine and the red-haired guy. And then, the locations like Paul was mentioning there with South Pasadena. I used to live in South Pasadena that last year. I was living out in LA, and that's absolutely correct. I think they shot a lot of the movie all over LA, but Arnie's house is in South Pasadena. It's like literally walking distance from the Myers house and all the Halloween locations from the original Halloween. And but actually, I have a '71 Jeep, and I used to take that to my mechanic in Irwindale, which is literally probably half a mile from where Arnie used to keep his car because he couldn't keep it at the house. And that's now been, that movie was filmed in '82, came out '83. It's been since demolished, and it's like a nice newer style industrial park now. But there's still a bunch of auto stuff, older auto, like it's an auto district. I don't know, with the older mechanic buildings and all kinds of stuff over there in Irwindale. So anyway, great movie. And by the way, Paul, I was going to tell you this earlier because you were talking about that Back to the Future, or not Back to the Future, the Christine engine sounding, it was a different motor in a car for that, to give it that sound in the movie, the bitchin' motor sound. Well, Back to the Future did the same thing. I've heard of DeLorean in real life, and they're quiet. It's like a dustbuster driving by you.
Let's move on to our second film. We're going to go Final Destination, and this is the first Final Destination because I know there was 5 of them, and I know that the 4th one was actually called The Final Destination. So a little bit confusing. And it wasn't even the final. So there was one after that because it did so well in the theaters. But it came out in 2000, a budget of $23 million, went on to gross $112.9 million, spawned 4 sequels. Technically, one was a prequel. But you didn't know that till the end of the 5th movie, where it actually, the 2 people who survived end up on the plane that crashes in the first movie that started it all. So that was kind of ironic. But the film won the Saturn Award for Best Horror Film. It also won and was nominated for several other awards. It ranked number 46 on Bravo's 100 Scariest Moments, and the plane crash depicted has made many lists of top scares throughout the years. And plane crashes are always pretty scary. The one in Castaway always got me. Like, it makes me think twice about flying. But this one was pretty well done, especially the way some of the seats were sucked out the side of the window there in the airplane there. But so the film stars Devon Sawa, if I'm saying that right, Ali Larder, who became pretty famous after this film, Sean William Scott, who's obviously most known as Stifler in the American Pie series. And yeah, without giving away too much of the film, Devon's character, Alex, he has a premonition the plane's going to crash and kill everyone on board. And this causes a fight with one of the jocks who wants to go to Paris with his girlfriend. It's pretty much just planning on having a few months of sex with his girlfriend in Paris. So he's kicked off the plane. 7 people are kicked off the plane in total, one of the teachers as well. The plane explodes after takeoff, and everyone on board died. So the 7 who remain, they had cheated death, and now death is coming for them. So that is kind of the premise of the whole movie and the whole series in general. I do like the sports aspect of the movies we're talking about tonight. There's not an actual sports scene, but the jock in this film is crucial to a lot of it, because one, they don't get off the plane without the fight happening, which he caused. So I like this aspect. It digs into the mentality and stress of having to be the best athlete in school, because that was the type of attitude that he had, that, you know, he's right. No one's going to dictate his life. This guy's played by Kerr Smith. He's your typical high school bully, in my opinion. And in a lot of films, the head jock is usually a bully, and this fits the T to that. And his life it depends on anger. And the fact that the character Carter feared Alex for not having control of his own life. So it's really a mental film as far as that goes, if you look at it. And just something neat about the film, most of the characters are named after horror film directors, producers, and actors. So I thought that was kind of neat. So that's my film. I'm going to be honest. I don't think it's the best tonight, and I've never done that. And this is our 80th episode, I think. I've never said mine isn't the best. I don't think it's the best tonight, but I'm throwing it out there. Sean, your thoughts on this film? I know that you told me you'd seen it, and it also was kind of different because it I don't want to say changed the way they were doing horror films, but at the time in the 90s, most of the things were just slasher flicks. And this was kind of a different concept of like the whole mental process of death and things like that. So your thoughts on the film?
Yeah, I really liked it. I liked, and I still I miss it today. It seems like, a remake Runaway Train for the last 15 years or so. I like the original concept behind it, and I wish that was more of a thing in the last X amount of years. I thought it was great. It was well done. Acting was good. It was suspenseful. Like the beginning, the first half especially, I mean, there was a feeling of like realism to it, that it felt like, and then later in the movie, the second half, it kind of got a little bit, okay, death's following them, and all these things are setting up to become, you see things happening randomly, and it's death doing death's thing. I did have a little bit of trivia that might blow your mind a little bit about this movie, if you're interested.
Yeah, go for it.
So about 10 years ago, I was doing a paper about the airline industry, and one of the topics was about airline crashes. So I had to do a little bit of research about that. And I found out that this movie is based on a real flight. And so there was a French class from Eastern Pennsylvania, I believe, and they were senior class, and they were going to Paris. and of course a lot of other people too. It was a big airliner. It was TWA Flight 800, and it was flying out of New York, and it was upon the Long Island area, somewhere over there when it exploded. And basically, now this is what's pretty jacked up about it. If you watch like YouTube videos about it, I saw a lot of, of these videos talking about these various flights. That was the most brutal one I saw. I was like, wow, that's just absolutely terrible. That's horrible. Like, and what happened during that flight, like it was like it's going up and the explosion happens and then it knocks out the bottom part of this plane. The instant explosion, the whiplash kills the pilots instantly. And then it cracks around the fuselage because there's a hole. And then the nose falls off. And then the whole plane with everybody else in there, because this was at the front, then it continues to veer up. So now there's no controls. And then it just goes up for a while. And then just plummets to the ocean. Can you imagine being somebody in that? That's just insane. That wasn't like, oh, instant, okay, it's over. No, that was like, you're talking, I don't know how many, maybe a few minutes, maybe 5. I don't know how high up they were. That's insane. And at first they said that, and there's still videos out that say that the spark underneath, and it was like old wiring, and the fuel caused the explosion. But for a long time, people were contesting that because right along Long Island is a Navy base where they test missiles out of there. And they said this was just so random, and the plane checked out. They checked it out. They didn't see anything. So they fought it and fought it and fought it. And I think about 20 years, so you're talking maybe a couple years ago, they finally admitted that one of their test missiles hit that fuselage at the bottom.
Wow. That's some inside information. Love that. Thank you. Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
That's crazy. But yeah, really good movie. I like it. I might watch it tonight.
I watched it last night just to catch up because it's been a while. So let's move on to The Faculty.
All right, The Faculty came out in 1998. This film had a pretty cool cast. A few young stars who made names for themselves later on, like Elijah Wood, Usher. Usher was big in the R&B world, but this was his first film. Josh Hartnett, Jordana Brewster. It also had some established stars like Salma Hayek and Jon Stewart. So things start out on the football field. Coach Joe Willis, who's a fiery football coach, he's reaming out his whole team for bad play and everything. He's the coach for Harrington High. So he just finished up practice and he notices something strange on the field. So he kind of kneels down to investigate it. And this sets up the drama for the rest of the film. Like, what is this thing? Because Coach Willis ends up changing his whole persona, his whole attitude, everything changes. And initially it looks like he's going on a killing spree. But then you eventually realize that he's actually adding people, mostly the faculty at first, to some sort of zombie fold. So meanwhile, the rest of the main characters are kind of set up in a manner reminiscent of The Breakfast Club. You have your jock, you have your introvert, you have your bad boy, that kind of thing. One interesting subplot is with Stan Rosado, who is the football team's quarterback. And he goes kind of on this little feel where he laments about the pressure of how everyone, kind of what Mike was referring to. Everyone needs him to be perfect and wants him to play. And he's kind of put up on this pedestal, but nobody really appreciates or expects anything out of him academically or any other way other than athletically. And he actually, in the plot there, he actually decides he wants to quit the team. And so that's a big deal to everybody involved. And there's another fun scene with football involved where at this point you've got a fully infected zombie team and they're just knocking their opponents in the next week. I mean, there's some vicious hits in this. And when their opponents are down, you know, pretty much like KO'd, then they're actually infecting, you know, the other team with this whole zombie thing. So, you know, as it turns out, you know, all these people becoming zombified. I'm not sure if that's a word, but you find out.
It sounds hilarious when you're telling us to plot.
Right. But you find out it's because of an alien life form. And so that's kind of interesting. And then, you know, eventually Casey Connor, Elijah Wood, is able to defeat the Queen of the Aliens, you know, thus preparing him later to save Middle Earth. All right, that comes a few years later. But anyways, this film, you know, it's become like a cult classic. It cost them $15 million to make. And then they've made $63 million from it. So it was certainly a success. Also had a pretty cool soundtrack. You had a lot of really cool classic rock hits, and you had some alternative hits from the late 90s there. So that is The Faculty.
So, Sean, with this one, we enter the zombie genre, so to speak. Even though it ends up being aliens, it's still technically zombie. Also, Brian mentioned Josh Hartnett, Jordana Brewster. He mentioned Elijah Wood, too. Elijah Wood was kind of a big child actor, but specifically Hartnett and Brewster, like this kind of bolstered their careers after this film. And if you look at horror in general, a lot of big actors kind of got their start in a horror film. I mean, we got Jamie Lee Curtis, Sissy Spacek, another one. You know, how does one of those movies bolster your career into becoming like a lead Hollywood actor, in your opinion?
Well, that's the thing is, you know, history has said that Hollywood really frowns on horror. You know, there's no category for it, any kind of awards show,
right?
You know, that you would see televised. And it's really unfortunate because it's the basis for a lot of these studios making their name. Look at Universal Studios in the 1930s. You had, you know, Bela Lugosi, the Dracula. You had Boris Karloff, Frankenstein. You had the Wolfman, the Mummy. I mean, all these monster serials that were the basis for Universal getting its footing. And it is really crazy. And yeah, a lot of actors do start in horror, and it's, you know, and then they will go into something else. Yeah, Jamie Lee, you mentioned. I don't know if you know that Kevin Bacon had it was like a supporting role in Friday the 13th.
Right.
And for a long time I don't think he acknowledged that because he wanted to do other things. He didn't want to get pigeonholed with horror, which that does happen too. Like, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. So I can kind of see why they would shy away, even though they're trying to get going, because you can get stuck in that. I've seen a number of actors get stuck in one genre, probably not because they wanted to, but they also wanted to work. So what are you going to do? But yeah, it's horror definitely, you know, I think it deserves more attention than, you know, it's been getting snubbed for when were the Universal movies? Like 80 years, 90 years ago? Like, and it hasn't really gotten anything since. And there's so many classics. There's so many great ones. And I was an 80s horror kid, so of course, I'm biased.
Yeah. And your thoughts on the film?
Yeah, I like The Faculty. I think it's a good movie. Between the three so far, I'd say it's my least favorite of the three we've talked about, but that's in no way saying I don't like it or it's not a good movie. I think it's a great movie. Again, original idea, something that I'm always down for, which, you know, seems fairly rare nowadays.
Yeah.
And, you know, the thing that when he was talking about that movie, the things I remember about that movie were Josh Hartnett had a pretty bitchin' car. And I think it was like a Nova, maybe black, jacked up, like a 70s Nova. Yeah. I think maybe that or Chevelle. Anyway. But yeah, what was making me laugh was the, you know, because what's the actor? Robert Patrick, the coach, you know, the T-1000. So yeah, so I think he was really primarily known for that before he did this, and he was definitely cued in on being a serious character. So, you know, he comes to this movie and he's serious coach. You know, he's not jacking around, and he's not a very nice guy. From what I remember, it's been a while.
Yeah.
And then I think, yeah, he was talking about how the alien things or what have you take over and they become like super jacked and they're rocking other teams in the field. And like this one hit, all of a sudden Patrick's like, you know, he's just like totally changed his character. He's like, whoa! And I'm like, you know, because he's an alien now or something like that. And I was like, oh man, I just remember that one scene where he reacted that way. I was like so not Patrick-like at the time, which was great. That was funny.
Let's move on to our final film tonight. If you can't see it behind Kevin, it's going to be Carrie.
Yeah, this is definitely, I think, the scariest movie that we're talking about tonight. Got 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, directed by Brian De Palma. Screenplay was Lawrence Cohen, and it's based on Stephen King's 1974 novel, Carrie. The film features Piper Laurie, Amy Irving, Betty Buckley, William Catt, and Travolta in some of the supporting roles. You got Sissy Spacek. She plays the main character, Carrie White, who's a shy 16-year-old who's mocked, bullied at school, which we all know that happened back then. It still happens today. Kind of brings it to home for a lot of people. She lives just with her mother, who's, you know, a very religious person. Tries to shelter Carrie from everything. Carrie goes through some, you know, things throughout the school year, but she gets invited to prom by the jock of the movie. He's like he's a letterman in like every sport for the school. Very popular. And then the popular kids that he's friends with, including his girlfriend, they get Carrie voted as prom queen to get her up on stage because they wanted to basically ridicule her, make fun of her, and they ended up dumping pig's blood on her when she was receiving the crown. And this set Carrie off on a rampage. She started basically using telekinesis powers, killing and locking all the classmates in the gymnasium where the prom was being held. Set the school ablaze. You see her leaving the school as all of her classmates are dying. She ends up going home. Her mom tries to comfort her and helps her bathe, and then ends up stabbing Carrie. And Carrie didn't take too kindly to this and ends up killing her mother, basically levitating her mom and throwing a bunch of sharp objects at her, crucifying her. So, you know, it's the first of more than 100 movies based on Stephen King's works. It was released in 1976. Carrie became very successful, grossed over $33 million, only had a $1.8 million budget, received two nominations at the Academy Awards for Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress. Critics and audience members, they cite it as one of the best films based on a Stephen King publication. It was ranked 86 on Empire's list of 500 greatest movies of all time. It was ranked 15th on Entertainment Weekly's list of 50 best high school movies. And then the prom scene, it's cute that Michael's movie was ranked 46th on Bravo's Scariest Moments, because the prom scene was actually ranked 8th in the 100 Scariest Movie Moments for Bravo. There was a sequel. There was also a remake of this movie. There was also a television film. So it definitely had an impact and a legacy that carried on.
Oh, good one. That's a good one. Get it? Carried on?
Yeah. Like what I did there?
I think they've remade it more than once too. And Sean, my question for you on this one, well, obviously Stephen King is like the king of horror, of course. But so I thought Sissy Spacek was perfectly cast. She's cute, but not overly beautiful in this film. And she plays a very good shy character. When I watched the remake, they put freaking Chloe Grace Moretz in one of them. Like, that girl's not shy or anything, and she's certainly not going to be unpopular if you look at her, you know. And there was one other one too with the brunette. Like, I'm thinking, okay, this is the hottest girl in the movie. Why am I supposed to believe she's the shy, you know? They're just not casting them right in these remakes, in my opinion. But your thoughts on Sissy Spacek in the film and on the film overall, of course, and just Stephen King, man, the king of it all, really.
Yeah, really good movie. From what I remember of it, yeah, there's some pretty damn effed up parts in this movie, relevant to like teenage life. And, you know, you always know about the kid that gets teased. We had one throughout the years, and it's just, you feel bad. It's like, you know, but you know, it's just it's messed up. Yeah, so she gets her. They all get their just desserts. She gets a little, you know, turnabout is fair play with her power, which is, you know, that's fun. That's a little get back there. And I think she did a fantastic job. You're right. She wasn't, you know, she was perfect for the part. I thought, you know, she did a fantastic job. And it was it's funny because I think it was William Catt who was America's greatest American hero from that TV show, the buffoon Superman, who was playing the jock boyfriend. And that was, yeah, that was classic. And then Travolta's in it too. And this was before I think the Saturday Night Fever, which was something else. And his girlfriend was I think Nancy Allen, who was in RoboCop, and saw Murphy get killed. But yeah, great movie. Really liked it a lot. I like, you know, you hit on probably two of my favorite King movies. And the thing is about, you asked about Stephen King. You know, the guy is just insanely creative. He's like, I've got a background in behavioral health, and I've to come up with the stuff that he does. It's almost like controlled schizophrenia. It's like he's an everyday Joe, or you could talk to him and still he's in the realm here, but he's able to create all this stuff, which is amazing. Like all these stories, all this detail, like all these books. It's just, and his books are not, they're not small books. They're pretty thick books, and so very in depth. Very creative. I'd have to say my sister and mine's favorite horror movie of the 80s, and one of our favorite movies in general, was based on a short story by him called Cycle of the Werewolf, which became the 1985 movie Silver Bullet, which had Gary Busey as the drunken uncle, the drunken good times uncle, you know, and the main character was played by, God bless him, Corey Haim, when he was like 13, and he was like a paraplegic, and his uncle builds like this, you know, hot rod wheelchair, or three I don't know if you've seen it, like a three-wheeler for him, and then there's a werewolf around town and people are dying, and it was just, that movie I love that movie. But yeah, Carrie's great. Great movie. You know, my sister watched it once because I was like, this movie's really freaky and farcical. I don't think you should watch it or whatever. And her friend watched it, and for whatever reason, she told me later, yeah, we laughed throughout the whole movie. I'm like, were you guys like smoking something, or? I'm like, okay. I mean, there is some parts that do strike as kind of goofy comedy, a little bit. You know, there's just these little things in the movie. You're like, I don't know, you know, where she's pulling the cord and the blood's teetering and it's got that noise. Oh my God. And the mom too. Like, some people, I could see how some people, like, she's a real nut, but if she's so over the top about it, some people might snicker, I guess. But to me, it just depends on what kind of person you are and how you take that. I took it as, wow, this lady's really disturbed person. Like, yeah.
Well, our shout outs tonight before our vote: Jeeper Creepers 2 and The Cheerleader. So let's move into our vote. Brian, you're in my upper corner. Can't pick your own, guys.
All right. Well, when I watched all these films, I mean, some of them kind of, you know, were scary, but I don't think anything really kind of put fear into my heart the way Carrie did. I mean, and then that one really touched home too, as far as, I mean, anybody that ever went through any kind of bullying. This is almost like a cool revenge kind of hero movie too, because it's like she has the power to get back at them, you know, because, like, you know, if you're getting bullied, and there's a lot of times that, you know, the victim doesn't have any power to do anything. You feel so powerless, and this kind of gives you that feeling too. So it's just, you get multiple layers of feelings and consciousness from this. So that's why I'm going to go with Carrie.
Paul?
Yeah, if I can't do Christine, I'll stick with Stephen King and do Carrie. And really, in full disclosure, that movie's too scary for me to watch all the way through. I can't handle it. But it definitely epitomizes like what a horror film is, like a super scary one. My movie was going to be like PG. It wasn't scary enough, and they said that they wanted to add F words into it, and that it took a lot of criticism for that. That's the only reason it's a R-rated, is because of all the F words.
Paul, so I'm gonna agree with you, man. I can't sit through Carrie. Like the religious undertones are just too much for me, for one.
It's a bad, scary movie.
Yeah, it's messed up, and so I am going to vote for Carrie. Paul, I do want to give you a shout out though. Christine's a fantastic.
Christine's
movie.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, I put it up there, but I truly believe Carrie's the scariest.
Sean, I didn't even remember this, but in Christine, the jock drove a '69 Charger. How cool is that? That wasn't the star of the film, but that's your dream car, isn't it?
But actually, yeah, he has it was a '68 because it has round lights on the rear. It's the only different. Oh, that, and then the divider in the front was
no divider in the front.
Yeah, the Duke boys. The General Lee was the '69. But hey, you know what? I'm not going to be picky here. I take either one.
Kevin, go ahead.
Out of the remaining three, because I can't vote for Carrie. Actually, I really like Christine. That movie actually kind of scared me a little bit too. Just the way the dude acted when he was around his car, like it was kind of messed up. So I'm gonna vote for
how you act around your Durango.
Huh? What?
So, Sean, we come to you for your vote.
Well, so we're voting for the scariest or the one we like the most?
Scariest.
Damn. Well, shit. I think we're going to have to go 4 for 4 on this. It would be Carrie for me. I did not take it. I did not watch that movie with the same hilarity as my sister. I found it very disturbing with maybe a few funny parts thrown in, but overall, especially the mom, geez, wow. But yeah, Piper Laurie, what a nut. She was great. But yeah, like just a little shout out to Paul's movie though. If I had to pick an overall favorite of the 4, it would have been Christine. And a little trivia also thrown out there about that movie was they got as many Furies as they could, but there was also another car called the Plymouth Belvedere that was very, very similar. And they used Belvederes and they just modified them for scenes with the Fury. And actually, my grandpa had a 58 red Belvedere, and I thought it was a Fury for the longest time. And it's such a minor difference between the two. And for a while, I was like, shit. I was like, wow, I've been to so many car shows. I've never seen this car. And here's like a 1960 picture my grandpa has of this ride he had back then. And he actually had Christine, but I thought it was that it looks like almost identical, but it was actually a Belvedere. Very slight difference, just on the chrome side paneling there.
Well, it's 4 votes for Carrie, 1 for Christine. So the win goes to Kevin. We got 1 question each, guys. So pick out your best one. Kevin, you won the show. You get first question for our guest, Sean.
Yeah, just for all the different parts that you've had, what was your favorite? What was your favorite role?
Well, I guess you couldn't. It would have to be a role that was written with you in mind, or me in mind, actually. Like that's like the biggest compliment being an actor. And I got to know a group of people when I was living out there, and one of these individuals is a writer, and he wrote this short film, and it's actually he wrote me as the lead villain, and it's basically like Dungeons and Dragons gone wrong, like it's a version of it that's from a different time. Some, you know, and it's super, you know, it's independent. But it's really, I like it. It's a great short. It's about, you know, 12 minutes. I think that was, yeah, I love that because, you know, that was probably the most rewarding too, because I had to learn on the fly about this game, Dungeons and Dragons, because I'm the lead bad guy in it, and I'm supposed to be the really serious one. They called them the DM, the Dungeon Master, or something like that. And I'd never played this game in my life, so I'm going and learning this as we're shooting it. And these rest of the people know about this game. I don't know about this game, but you know, I'm supposed to be the guy that knows everything about this game. So I'm just like, okay, you know, and they're telling me the lines, and I'm like, they're defining stuff. So I'm doing the parts as I'm learning the stuff. And then a few people have seen it since then, and they complimented me on, you know, I was very, very believable in that, and I appreciate that. That's a huge compliment.
So tell us about your project, the Friday the 13th Part 3, the Memoriam documentary, and tell us about it and where people can find it to watch.
Yeah, it's it started as well, first of all, you can see it on YouTube for free. You just enter in Friday the 13th Part 3, the Memoriam documentary. Little wordy on the title there, but you know, it's yeah, I'm pretty proud of it. It's I think it's about 195,000 views now, so it's got a steady stream of people that really like it. And it basically, the idea for the project came about because I had met Richard Brooker in 2006, and it wasn't a great initial meeting. He had, you know, I was pretty stoked to meet him. He was the first guy to ever play Jason, ever to don the hockey mask in Part 3, the one in 3D in 1982. And I had been to like a 25th anniversary get together. They had all these people from all throughout the series at this building, this little building at Hollywood and Highland. And, you know, you got to meet a lot of people. And there was even a lot of people there from Part 3, but Richard wasn't there. And I'm like, damn, the original Jason like, that's too bad. But I was living in Florida at the time. And then he went to a thing in Orlando, which that was it was like like Orlando FX something event or something. And it was such a crazy mix of people. Like, that was kind of fun. Robert Englund, who's Freddie, was there. George Romero, who's passed on now, Godfather of Zombies. Tony Moran, Halloween. Richard Brooker. Peter Mayhew, who was Chewbacca. He was there. I met him. I'm like almost 6'4", and yeah, pretty big hands. This guy shook my hand. It was like a baseball mitt around my hand. Like, he was just huge, but super nice guy. And David Carradine was there, and like not even 6 months later, he was dead. Like, I met David, and he was probably one of the most intimidating people I ever met. But yeah, so I hung out. I met Richard, and then I met him a second time, but I was at a different event. And, you know, I was just done for the day doing what I was doing. And I walked by his table, and he's got some pretty cool pictures from Part 3. And I'm just checking him out. And, you know, he kind of is like, I look up at him. He's looking at me. He's like, do I know you? Have we met? You know, he's like, I'm terrible with names, but I never forget a face. And I was like, yeah, we met a couple months ago. And he was like, a couple months ago. Like, oh no, that wasn't Orlando, was it? I was like, yeah. He was like, hey, I'm sorry about that. I was jet lagged. I'm from England. I just got back from a trip. I was not feeling good. I should actually canceled, but I had a commitment to the show, and I just my mind was on something else at the time, and I was kind of scrambled that day. So I really apologize. So and he's like, so I was like, wow. I was like, that's pretty cool. I was like, wow, to remember that, and you know, he apologized. I'm like, wow. And then he's like, hey, you wanna take a picture? You wanna get a picture together? And I was like, sure, Richard, that sounds good. And then that's the picture of me and him in '06 there. That's the one that appears in the documentary. It's just, I've met a number of people in film throughout the years, and that was really big of him. And also too, more to the point, that was something that was special about him was nobody's ever said this to me before ever. He's like, to the fans, you see like, you want to ask stories about the making of Friday Part 3. And he's like, well, sure. I'd love to tell you about that or this or whatever. He's like, but what about you? What do you like? What do you do? What makes you you? And nobody in film has ever asked that. It's always about, well, everybody's coming for me. Everybody's coming to meet me and get a picture with me and sign something for me to sign something. It's like, he's the only person I've ever met that's ever showed like that interest about people that want to come meet him. So that was special and unique. And then, partied that night. Actually, that was at a hotel in Cleveland, and the brake transformer blew outside. So it's a blacked out hotel in Cleveland at this event, and people are going room to room, and everybody's drinking with candlelit rooms. And it was a weird, fun party night. And then I saw him a final time after I got out of the Fire Academy in Tampa. And, he just came up and, hit me on the back. Hey, man, how you doing? I'm like, I'm good, good. How are you doing, Richard? He's like, good, good. He's like, hey, after I'm done signing and doing pictures for the day, how about we go grab a drink? And I was like, sure, sounds good. So we shot the breeze for about 20 minutes. And he said, I gotta go make an appearance over here. But hey, it was great to talk to you. I was like, hey, good talking to you too, and take care. And that was about it. And then about 6 years later, I heard that he suddenly passed away at 58 from a friend. And so I had this idea to, I used to do location visits, and I did some photography and video of visiting the Part 3 locale on a trip to California in '03. And then like a year or two, about a year later, no, a few years later, some trespassers had snuck into that cabin that's featured in the film and inadvertently burn it to the ground. And, so I thought, well, maybe I can share with what I have, the location that was, how it was, video, photography, and maybe a little 1 or 2 minute video for the fans that can't visit it, how it is anymore, or how it was, and dedicate it to Richard at the end. And then life just took me west, because I'm from Indiana, and I was living in Indiana at the time I had the idea, and when Richard passed. And then I ended up getting a job in LA, and a lot of those cast members from that '82 film still lived in the area. And I told them about what I was doing, and it was kind of a tribute or story about Richard and the making of Part 3, which actually Part 3 dethroned E.T. for one weekend in 1982. I think E.T. was dominant for like 4 or 5 months in '82, and it knocked it off that weekend. So that's something to be said, I guess. Yeah, it was if you ever have a chance to see that movie in 3D, it's not the typical red and blue glasses 3D. It was a new kind of 3D style at the time, and it was really, cutting edge for its time. And if you can see it in real 3D, the way it was filmed, it actually is pretty cool. So it just went along, and I ended up in LA, and I got a hold of about 4 cast members from the movie he was in to talk about him and the making of the film. And then I got various other people that were friends of Richard's that also are probably recognizable to horror fans to share about him. God bless him. Eric Brandon's gone now. He's in the documentary. That was Richard's best friend. He's passed. And Louis Lazara, a huge shout out to Louis, who he had an amazing career as a makeup effects artist. I mean, his best friend was Roy Scheider from Jaws, Chief Brody, and then the appliances and stuff. And he's worked on Arnold, and he just passed away. I don't know. I think it was about 7 months ago. He gave us some great behind the scenes photography for it. It was just a really just knocking on doors and doing the best I could do to make this as good as it could be. Cause I ended up in LA. I didn't expect that. And now I want to make this as good as it possibly can be, cause I'm in the area to do that. So and then what, edit it together and, and see how it, and it is what it is. I was trying for an hour length on it, but you kind of just put together what you got with the flow, and it turns out it's about 38 minutes.
Brian, go ahead.
Were there any movies that you watched, maybe in your childhood or early in your young adulthood that really inspired you to want to get into the movie business?
Well, I think it was just this whole experience. And I think Paul and anybody else that, that grew up during the 80s with the movies that we had then, going with the folks or going, with your friends. I mean, it was just an explosion of classic films from that decade. I mean, you always got your classics in every decade, but I think the 80s really outdid themselves. I mean, or that decade itself is just crazy packed with just classic movies. And then, and a lot of which we're seeing today that, are getting remade and whatever. It's like, so I'd say that experience, just going to the movies with my dad, and enjoying this, what we didn't know what adventure we were going to be getting into, but whatever adventure it is, it's going to be good. It's going to be a new story, and it's going to be well done. It's like you could almost bank on that for pretty much anything from the 80s is going to be good to some degree. And I was just a kid from Indiana, and I'm just like, I don't know how I could do it, but somehow, someday I want to be a part of it. And life through the way it worked out just put me in that area. And so I was actually looking at the Seattle area when I was in Indianapolis, and then I got a chance to get going, or to give it a shot in Arizona. My aunt and uncle live out there, and a big shout out to them and a thank you to them, because that's actually what helped the documentary to take that next step to become more than just like a 2-minute video with pictures and video and then dedicate to Richard at the end. And then I ended up in LA landing the job, and it was just, so and then once I got out there, I was pretty much working on the documentary outside of work. I was working, a day job, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And then outside of that, I would work on, just knocking on doors, trying to get, interviewees for it. People were suggesting people. And once the dominoes started to fall, as far as we get one person and this one person knows another person, and then this other person knows, like they had maybe a very faint contact from a movie that was like 30 some years before, or about 30 years before. And I just kept trying to make, and then after that, I just kind of, after it was in post-production, I started doing independent projects, acting out there. And then that last 6 or 7 months out there, I was self-booking as an extra for TV shows. I did about 4 or 5 a week. And I've met some pretty great actors during that time. Working on it. And then some of those, see, as an extra too, you just do it to get a consistent check so you can pay your rent as an extra. But you don't ever expect it to be like in focus, because that's the thing about an extra is they're always in the background and it's always slightly blurry because the camera's on your main actors. But there's a couple times I got, I lucked out and I got featured, is what it's called when it's in focus, when you're a featured actor as an extra. So that was cool, like that season 2 finale of Westworld. And I got to, shoot the breeze with Ed Harris. I've always liked Ed Harris. I thought it was, it was awesome to meet him. Truly just a professional, super good vibe guy. I mean, he was in A Beautiful Mind. He was in The Abyss. The Rock with Sean Connery. Great actor. And then others too. So yeah, sorry, that's kind of a long-winded answer there. Just growing up in the 80s and wanting to be a part of it as a kid is the short answer.
Paul finishes out.
Well, you left a voicemail for me as Sylvester Stallone, and you seem to have sort of an unhealthy obsession with Wilford Brimley. Which one's your... Damn
it, the pull-out!
Therapy, yeah. So anyway, give us a brief, which one's your best, or is it one I'm not thinking of? You actually look like you could do a Sean Connery, but maybe I'm just judging you based on your face.
Well, yeah, Connery's on the voiceover reel. It's, it's, what did I say? I kind of made up like short little stint commercials for the voiceover reel just for them to something to say. So it was like Russian standard original vodka.
Oh, that's good. Oh, it gives me chills.
It's from Russia with love. Showed it shaken, not stood. Something like that.
Not bad. It's not bad.
When I recorded that in the studio, the guy's like, "Ooh, man, that's good. I can hear his whiskers."
Yeah, it might be better than your Brimley.
Yeah, the Brimley's a work in progress. I just, diabetes.
That's very limited. That's sort of a limited fake Wilford Brimley there.
Yeah. Well, you just, you gotta, I don't know what in the hell, what is he? Diabetes and what's the other one he does?
Quaker Oats or something.
Yeah.
Quaker Oats, yeah.
Yeah, that was great when I was a kid because he was such an intimidating actor guy, and he's sitting there at the table with this kid, this random kid, and I knew it was a random kid. He's an actor kid. And it was the Quaker Oats commercials, and he's like, "All right, grandson, what you do, you eat this because it sticks to your bones." And he's like, "Yes, Grandpa." And he's like, "Quaker Oats,
it's a bit creepy.
Right thing to do."
I feel like he's here with us. Rest in power, Wilford. Rest in power.
Yes.
Well, I want to remind everybody, go to YouTube, check out that Friday the 13th Memoriam documentary, part 3. Check that out. Get his views up. I want to thank everybody who's been watching this show tonight. And I want to remind you to hit subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. And thank you, Sean Richards, for joining us. We appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. So we'll see you all next time. Everybody have a great night.